the technical lead for the project. It's hard to tell about an average day because it seems like everyone has a new surprise there, but it's generally coordinating the different people that are working on the Gutenberg project. A lot of coordinating beyond the Gutenberg core project with people that are either page builders, building things for Gutenberg, plugin authors, different teams, and like Woo, Jetpack, Yoast, like there's a lot of different things going on. But yeah, it's most of my days are spent on the GitHub repository and getting the releases. We're trying to do like a weekly or semi-weekly cadence, and I spend most of my time coordinating those.
Okay. How many years have you been working on Gutenberg?
It's been a little bit over a year. So the first version of the plugin was released exactly 1 year ago at the last WordCamp Europe. And I think we started in January of that year, so it's like a year and a half in Gutenberg.
Can you tell us about the early days of the project? Was this one that originated inside of Automatic?
No, like the original seed for Gutenberg I think was around WordPress 3.6 when we tried to do like a new version of post formats. That was actually changing if I remember correctly, was adding like a sort of Tumblr-like experience at the top of the post. And that whole process ended up in, I think Matt made sort of like a post-mortem for how things failed there and said that maybe the idea is more about content blocks. And that's something that remained there. Like Joen, the first design lead for Gutenberg, also did a mock-up at that time, like 4 or 5 years ago. And sort of things aligned when Matt announced the new focus changes that we were going to orchestrate releases around these focuses. Things aligned to pick back this idea about content blocks. And that's how it started, with prototypes in the open and seeing where we could get.
Okay. The WordPress community is just now starting to understand the reasons behind the Gutenberg initiative, but for a while there was quite a bit of confusion and pushback. If you could turn back the clock, what would you do differently to improve Gutenberg's reception in the community?
That's a good question. I think we should have put a bit more effort in clarifying what we meant by editor, because when Matt announced we're going to be focusing on the editor, the WordPress community, the more familiar with how things work, generally took it that we were going to focus on TinyMCE. And the idea from the start was to focus on the editing experience as a whole, like how a user perceives that, which is the whole page. And I think that took some time to sort of rectify that was always what was meant, to look at the whole editing interface at once. But at the same time, I think that with some of these projects, I think that people are going to be in different places at different times, and things will sort of coalesce and make sense at different paces. I think we got to a point now where we built enough of the Gutenberg vision that we can see where it can lead us, and so I think that's the thing most helpful for the community, to say, okay, now we can work together towards this, because it's more clear what are the opportunities, what we can imagine we can do with this. But maybe, yeah, I would have tried to make sure that the perception of what the editing experience was more clear.
Okay. Your post, Gutenberg or the Ship of Theseus, was an important turning point for many in the WordPress community to finally understand the why behind the project. What inspired that post, and why did you put it on your personal blog?
Well, I wanted to try to communicate some of the decisions behind how we were approaching the content structure, and how we could bring this block editing experience in a way that doesn't that didn't put like, okay, this is WordPress until now, and now we're going to have this new WordPress, and you won't be able to go from one to the other, which would have been a very bad idea. So I wanted to sort of communicate that a lot of effort was going into to figure out a more incremental development pace, even if the end result was going to be a fundamentally different experience, which was the goal, to get a better user experience. The process towards there could be as incremental as possible. So that was the primary motivation for the post. And why on the personal side? I don't know, just just because we're all bloggers sometimes, and yeah.
Okay. Matt unveiled a timeline for a possible first release of Gutenberg in Core in August, and many people feel like it might be too fast. Do you think the WordPress ecosystem will be ready for Gutenberg this soon, and will the team be working just night and day to make that happen?
Yes, absolutely. I think people have already been trying to get ready. We've already seen like many major sites being launched using Gutenberg. Whether we are as a community ready is like we need to make that call when it comes to that. In terms of the plugin itself, we want to get into feature freeze within this month or very early next month. I think that will give us time to evaluate, get it out there to as much as people as possible, and then evaluate how ready we are. But from what we've seen and plugin authors building compatibility for Gutenberg, like it seems that there's already enough momentum going on that could be achievable.
Okay. Gutenberg is the future of WordPress and will have a dramatic impact on the lives and businesses of millions of people. Do you feel the weight of that as you are developing? What do you hope the world will see when the first version is released in Core?
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing like one thing the thing that's been most fulfilling, at least to me, has been seeing the regular users when they can use Gutenberg and build things that would have been very hard for them to do before. And when they share those impressions that they could build something they are proud of and they can express themselves, I think that's really, to me, that's the most fulfilling, because that's really one of the major points behind this. At the same time, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the design and developer community can build with it, and what their imagination can take us from there. Because, again, Core is going to supply sort of the infrastructure and the main building blocks, but it's everything that can be built around it that's going to be exciting, as always with WordPress.
Okay. How long can the Gutenberg team keep this pace of development that you currently have now? Will you continue this pace when you move to phase 2 and the customization part of the project?
Hopefully, yes. I think that's been one of the most interesting aspects has been how that we were able to keep a healthy pace of development and contributions and feedback loop. And I think Matt shared how many issues have been reported and how many closed, and I think that's reinvigorating for like the development pace of the project, and I think it would be useful to keep that going on for customization.
Okay. What is your favorite feature, and maybe something that most people don't know about yet, or perhaps haven't discovered?
I'm really liking how some of the latest features have come together, and I'm referring to like templates, nested blocks, and child blocks. They have all been done as separate APIs, but now that they are all there, together they can be combined to create very sophisticated solutions. Like, for example, you could have a product block that's sort of a container, and then have children blocks for like the product image, the product title, the price, the buy button. And these blocks don't leak towards the bigger Gutenberg area, so they are only available within this container. And that's making use of all these APIs that have been developed in the last 6 months or so. So I like how these things are coming together. And I also really like the block interface for inserting blocks. I think that was one of the major goals, was to unify all these concepts together. And I think that's coming around fairly well. In terms of something that maybe people don't know, I think the shared global blocks that you can make in Gutenberg is a very good way to create new blocks. So if you're setting up a site for a client, you could just write some HTML for a very specific use case that you want your user to be able to use in whatever post, and turn that into a blog. So you're basically building a blog without writing code. And I think that can also be very empowering to people setting up sites for their clients.
Okay, last question. How can theme plugin developers and publishers get ready for version 1 if it's coming in the next few months? What resources are available now to help them get started, especially with the new JavaScript APIs? For some folks who are worried about getting ready for Gutenberg, what's the first place you can point them to start?
So probably the best entry point is going to be the wordpress.org/Gutenberg page. We're trying to place all the resources there so that at least is an entry point. And then depending on the level of expertise from the people, they can either reach out on Slack or on GitHub, or go into the handbook itself and find some of the solutions. In terms of getting ready, we're trying to do a very hard job in making sure that we have the minimum breakage as possible, and ideally nothing should break. We have systems in place that if you have things like meta boxes that are not supported, that we can fall back to the classic editor. If there are meta boxes we support, we can render them directly in Gutenberg. Themes, the way the data structure was defined, themes don't have to do anything to render Gutenberg blocks. We have recently moved the more opinionated visual styles to be opt-in, so themes can opt in whenever they are ready to handle the visual style. So again, nothing changes for the user. So I think I think the biggest thing is going to be the communication avenues. It's like if you try to use Gutenberg and you find something didn't work for you, we want to hear that as soon as possible, so we can either fix if there are issues, or maybe prepare some extra documentation or avenues to address those issues.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.